Welcome to today's presentation, How to Leverage Iceberg APS for a Stronger Archer Program. My name is Glenn Gower, and I'll be your moderator today. As we go through today's presentation, if you have any questions, you can send them to us through the chat panel on your screen, and we'll answer as many of them as possible. And because everybody always asks, yes, we will be sharing today's deck and a video of the presentation afterwards. And if you want to get a deeper dive on anything you see today, we would be happy to schedule a follow-up with you. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Paul Everest in Toronto. Paul is Iceberg's VP of Managed Services and heads up our APS program. Hi, Paul.
Hello, Glenn. How are you?
Good. And later on, we'll be joined by another colleague, Andrew Visai, coming up later on in the call. At Iceberg, we are 100% focused on governance, risk, and compliance, and we help organizations plan, deploy, and support risk management software solutions, including RSA Archer. We've been at this for over 10 years. We've helped dozens of organizations across North America. We offer a full life cycle of services, including executive GRC workshops, professional services, and innovative solutions like our advanced reporting and dashboards for Archer. I also want to plug our Risk Intelligence Academy today. Webinars like this one, we do webinars on a monthly basis, and all of them are posted to our website, icebergnetworks.com. Just look for the Risk Intelligence Library. Today, though, we're focusing on the middle of our 5 pillars, known as APS, Archer Production Support. And with that, Paul, I'll pass things over to you.
Thanks very much, Glenn. As Glenn said, my name is Paul Everest. I manage the managed services part of our business, which includes APS. If I could make a small correction to your acronym there, Glenn, we like to call this Archer Program Support. We wanted to make this more than just a developer for hire service for our clients, and we built a full support program around Archer that allows clients to access developers, consultants, architects, and other resources to support the entire program. So let's move on to the next slide and talk about the 2 major values that we see clients getting from our Archer program support. First is user adoption. We feel that this is extremely important to every client, and we can help in a number of ways for Archer to become a stronger and more embedded application in the organization. We can work with end users to make the application easier to use. We can make sure that the application's capturing and presenting in reports the right information for the business stakeholders. And we can help the Archer sponsor or Archer owner within the organization promote and sell other use cases within Archer to other parts of the business. All of these inputs work towards providing a stronger Archer within an organization and better user adoption. The second area we like to help clients with is self-sufficiency. We do have a number of clients on APS that have their own internal IT or business developer groups, but they're looking for experience, they're looking for knowledge, they're looking for training and mentoring on how to build their skills to configure and support Archer. And we can also help in that area as well through a training and mentoring program. So let's talk about some of the challenges that we see with our customers when we start talking to them about APS. First and foremost, we quite often have clients talk to us because they're struggling to either find or maintain experienced Archer developers. Archer isn't similar, is a little bit different than most applications, so JavaScript, .NET, and HTML and other coding applications don't necessarily work for Archer. It's a small, unique group of people that are developers for Archer, and they're a harder group to keep hold of. So many clients come to us looking for help on the developer side. However, they have other challenges as well. More than just finding someone to be able to configure and change Archer, they're looking for more general information on Archer. How do I use it? What else can I do with it? How do I leverage some of the new functionalities that are coming out with the later releases? What's this advanced workflow? How can I use that to improve my Archer application? So these are things that we can help clients with as well. As per my previous slide, we're also able to work with your IT team or the business team that has the developers to build their skills, show them how to use Archer, and just generally make yourself more self-sufficient on supporting Archer. And finally, we have a number of clients that have developed solutions, have evolved solutions, have modified solutions, and they become increasingly difficult for the end user to use. Archer can become a fairly complex workflow if it's not configured right, and we've helped many clients streamline, simplify, and improve the workflow aspect of Archer so it's more intuitive and easy to use for the end users. Let's talk about some real-world examples that we've done with clients that have Archer. An example of a client that we've been with them now for nearly 3 years, is a large hospital in California. And this client was exactly what we talked about with finding resources. They just struggled to find a good Archer resource, and they kept losing them. And they just decided it's probably better to give Iceberg a try. And we've been working with them for 3 years now. So when we first started with them, they had a long backlog of tickets that needed fixing. They needed uploads, they needed fixes, they needed a number of things. And we jumped in and got those things cleared away quite nicely. We have a large financial institution in Chicago that had a deployed solution that was extremely difficult for the end users to use. It was frustrating for people that only used Archer periodically, and they needed someone to take a look at how it was being configured and how the end users were using it. We went to work and came up with some improvements in how the end user experienced Archer and made the end user experience much more satisfactory. And the last example that we have worked with in the past year is a company in Canada. It's an investment company. Interestingly enough, they have business groups, each with their own solution that run on Archer. And they have within their organizations a developer or two developers. So the development team is not within the IT group, but they're actually embedded within the different business groups. However, they were a fairly junior group of developers and needed periodic and maybe not scheduled, but they needed to talk to people that knew Archer well, and we ended up developing a mentoring and training program with this company. We never actually touched the keyboard to make any changes, but instead worked with the developers at the company to build their skill set. So what does an APS arrangement with Iceberg look like? Well, it's not a project type statement of work at all. We see it as a longer term partnership or relationship with the client. Our contracts are typically 6 months to 1 year. And it's a lengthy, it's not a project oriented statement of work at all. So it has a fairly lengthy period of time over which the client can shift and move and work through different types of priorities that they want to accomplish with Archer over the year. You have access to certified developers, but you can also access architects, subject matter experts on the different use cases within Archer, and you can access GRC consultants. So if you're looking for help with risk taxonomies, defining risk ratings, or things like that, you can access these resources through our APS agreement as well. Finally, we offer the APS in two ways. It can be a fixed price, which provides you a dedicated resource, or we can do a time and materials where you simply buy a bucket of hours and you draw down them as you need. So either way, whichever you feel most comfortable with, we have a pricing arrangement that will work for you. So let's talk about the operational support level of our APS service. This is where we provide you developers. It is the largest component of APS, and for any relationship that we set up with a client, developers are a fairly major component. So we have three options. We have a dedicated support model, We have the training and mentoring model, and there's a hybrid model, which is a mix of the first and the second one. Under the dedicated model, we would provide a client a named primary and secondary resource. So you would get a person assigned to your organization to work with you to learn your Archer installation, to understand the dynamics of the application within the organization. This resource or these resources would participate in weekly meetings. They would report to some sort of IT business manager or a business stakeholder who would be responsible for prioritizing the work of the developers. We've learned by signing up more and more clients that a quarter of an FTE or half of an FTE are the most popular options for the amount of time that they would get from a developer for each month. So interestingly enough, the FTE count is less than 1. Furthermore, we work with both the client's environments, and if the client needs us to, we can have an internal environment as well. The second option is training and mentoring. So this is a situation where we wouldn't actually be doing configuration work for the client, but working with their IT department to train, to mentor, and to build their skill sets on configuring Archer. We can do this either through scheduled meetings each week. We can do it through ad hoc meetings where people would reach out to our resources to set up a meeting. We also offer sandboxes to clients, and sandboxes are great for training and skill development. We would set up a sandbox for your developers. They could take a snapshot or a package from their development environment, drop it into the sandbox, and then work with an Iceberg resource to experiment with data feeds, advanced workflow, and other features and functionality like that. The hybrid model is a bit of both. We would provide you a named resource who would be assigned to your organization and would work with other IT developers on your team. Our developer could act in both capacities, making configuration changes, as well as training and mentoring the IT developers that you have internally. Again, we find that the 0.25 or half of an FT are the most common options in terms of the level of time you get from these developers each month. So these are the options with which we can provide you the operational support. These are the developers that would come from Iceberg and would work with your team. At a slightly higher level, clients also have interests and requirements and needs around Archer and GRC in general. And let me list out some of the examples of what I mean by Archer and GRC. Improving the end user experience. This is a very common one. I mentioned a bit earlier, but clients are always looking for ways to make the application more intuitive and easy to use for end users. Quite often, Archer is only a periodic tool used by people. It's for quarterly or annual assessments. So they'll come into the application, and if they haven't used it for a year or even a quarter, they may forget how to do it. And if it's not easy to use, they get frustrated. We've also had clients ask us for demonstrations to other business areas within the organization to show them how Archer can be used for other domains, such as business continuity planning, internal audit, controls assurance, regulatory compliance, policy change management, and other domains like that. With all the clients that we've worked at, we've got a large history and knowledge of how other clients have used Archer. And this is an area that clients are always interested in learning about. How do other clients use Archer? So we can provide you insights and examples of how other clients have set up their solutions. And then another thing that clients are always looking to us for are just guidance in GRC in general. Defining risk ratings, harmonizing risk ratings across different domains within Archer, building out risk taxonomies, prioritizing what are the next GRC projects to undertake. So all of these requirements and needs by clients can be met through the APS contract with Iceberg. So let's talk about some of the improved end user experience things that we can bring to the table to help Archer become a more intuitive and easy to use application with your user base. One of the more popular things that we've developed and deploy to our clients are embedded instructional videos. So we can create videos on how to complete workflow, and we can embed those videos at the top of a questionnaire. We can put it on a dashboard. We can put it on top of an application. We can even create an entire workspace with a series of eye views with different videos describing the different workflows within Archer. This is very popular, and we can build and deliver to you these instructional videos under APS. Another common thing to deliver is to reduce the number of clicks and bulk actions that approvers typically have to do within Archer. If you're a vice president and you have to approve 100 records at the end of an annual attestation cycle, it can be extremely time-consuming to click into a record, approve it, click out, click into the next record, approve it, and so on. We've developed these inline reports that allow all of the reports or all of the records that the approver needs to approve, and the person can go down this list and simply click into each record to approve it or reject it. This simplifies dramatically the amount of time approvers need to take to be able to approve or reject records. Another example, very simple to do, yet very effective, is we have clients that have end users that don't always flip a record to submit or submit for review once they've completed answering the questions. So we can build custom buttons at the top of a record. So rather than flipping a field within the form itself, the end user can go up and just click the submit button. The submit button would go through the checks to make sure all the mandatory fields are completed. And upon successful pass of all the different business rules, it would flip the status from in progress to submitted, for example. Again, these are very simple to do, but it makes the end user experience much more effective. Another thing that we've worked on with clients is to build chevrons for larger, more complex workflow. Larger, more complex workflow can get lost in all the tabs and all the different sections and scrolling up and down records. It can get pretty daunting for people that do not come in all the time to complete parts of the workflow. So we've gone to build the chevrons at the top of a workflow, and it identifies what sections are completed, what sections still need to be completed. You can click on the chevron to bring up that particular section that needs to be required. As well, we can build business rules into the chevrons that prevents you from moving from one section to the next until the first section has met all the business requirements. So again, this just improves the visibility for the end users and makes the workflow a little more intuitive for the end user to complete. So these are some examples of how Iceberg can bring our experience with working with other clients to you to help improve the end user experience for Archer. And there, as I mentioned on that previous slide, there are other areas still that clients would like to access Iceberg for with respect to demonstrations on other use cases, how to talk about GRC in general. And for those particular bullet points, we have a team of senior GRC consultants with expertise in the various domains that you have within Archer. So on the screen, you'll see our 4 consultants: Kirk Hogan, David Pearson, Melissa Coho, and Andrew Visay. These people have spent many years with Archer and have established a strong competence in each of those different domains within Archer: internal audit, third party, controls assurance. So if you're looking to expand from one use case into another use case, you can use your APS contract with Iceberg to leverage one of these people to talk to you about how you would deploy it, how would you expand into other use cases within Archer. And Andrew Visay, interestingly enough, used to be a client with Iceberg. In fact, Andrew was our very first APS client. And he's on the line, and I wanted to just ask Andrew a little bit about his observations about Iceberg when he started using us for his APS support.
Sure. When I was in my prior life, many of the capabilities that you see up on the screen now, I had responsibility not only for the strategy behind them, but the instrumentation. When I took the role running kind of a very broad governance portfolio, I said, I'm not going to do it without tools. The executive that I worked for at the time said, okay, but prove to me that it's going to work. So I had to roll out Archer with a very small team who were also trying to figure out the right way to develop and deploy processes, manage end users, figure out how we're going to manage risk. Risk management was really our primary job, not necessarily tools management. And that's when I had the discussion with the folks at Iceberg and said, if you can provide me with a service that will free up my very small team of 2 people plus a co-op to focus on our day jobs and have a service that helps address the first line things. Can we move this field over there? This person's having trouble getting access. Can we make this function a little differently from a workflow perspective? There's a pretty consistent level of that sort of effort required, and it's time consuming. And when you have a small team who also has to, think about how are we going to report to risk committees and boards, it's hard to do. So the APS service came to be and was a great part of my success in a prior life, because we could rely on our tool set to do what it's supposed to do. We knew that if there was a problem, we had folks who understood it, could address it. And I knew that my team wasn't getting bogged down in day-to-day tools management details, because it was being handled by the Iceberg folks. So it was a tremendous success for me. And that was, Paul, I don't remember how many years ago it was, 4 or 5 years ago, I think. So
yeah, I would think it's almost 5 years.
Yeah, so that the Iceberg APS service is not just still around, but has expanded and grown and has lots more happy customers is really a testament to the work that's been done. So yeah, as a first-hand testimonial was a big part of me being successful, not only just with Archer, but within kind of my organizational goals of building out a program.
Thanks very much, Andrew. So just to wrap things up a little bit here, I just wanted to, again, define the ways that you can engage us for the Archer program support. The first method is through dedicated support, where we would provide you a named primary and secondary developer who would work with the organization to support Archer. We like to see a 6-month or 1-year option. And the most common hours that we include are 30 hours or 75 hours, although we do make custom arrangements for people that either have larger amounts or are focused on a different type of amount. So we can scale it back and forth, but 30 and 75 hour packages a month are the most common. But on top of the developer, you're also able to access these other resources, the architects, even testing, mentoring, coaching, and the subject matter experts. The other option is on demand. This is a little less close in terms of how we support you. You would submit a ticket or a request to us, and we would go off and assign a resource to work with you. There might be a delay of a few days to get a resource, and you may not get the same resource every time you make the request, but it does allow you to only use the hours when you need them. So we would start with the bucket, and we would draw down on those hours as you made the requests for various resources. But again, like the dedicated support, you would get access to all of the resources available with an Iceberg, developers, subject matter experts, and whoever else we have available. So those are the two ways that we package and present the APS to clients. And that is a wrap of our APS service for clients.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. It's Glenn here again. So we wanted to keep this webinar to under 30 minutes, and we've got about 4 minutes left or so. I do want to get to a couple of questions, if you don't mind. The first one is, you mentioned training and mentoring, and can you elaborate on how that differs from what RSA offers for training?
Absolutely. So we see ourselves as a complementary training source to RSA. RSA provides the fundamental basic training to bring someone up to speed on how to configure Archer. They have the Archer certification program, and that's something that we just simply don't do. So we think RSA is the best organization to go have that certification completed. They've got a great team of instructors on how to set that up. However, once you've got a developer up and running within your organization and you've got solutions deployed or you're working on solutions to deploy, the developer may want to know more information about more advanced aspects of Archer, advanced workflow, data feeds, complicated or complex calculated fields, bulk tasks, things like that. And that's where we can come in and help so that we could act as a sounding board or an answering board to those developers on how to do things. And this works actually in tandem with our sandboxes in that we can set those developers up with a sandbox. They can export their current solution into the sandbox, and that we could work with those developers to show them how to do specific things.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Another question coming in, do you also support Archer infrastructure, servers, or hosting environment configuration, that kind of thing through this program?
Yeah, so through Archer program support, we can, it's not our primary area of focus. We can certainly take preliminary investigations to understand what's going on, but I think at a certain point we would engage RSA to help with more infrastructure, connectivity, and database type issues. So that's where we would work with RSA to provide the support to the client. We could actually open the ticket with RSA on behalf of the client and work the ticket on behalf of the client, but we would go back to RSA for that solution.
Okay. One person asked about if you can provide a little bit of detail about some of the work we've done connecting Archer to Tableau for reporting and dashboards.
Yes. So we have done some projects with clients to export the data from Archer and then to allow a third-party tool, such as Tableau, to then access that data to create reports and leverage the advanced features that you can get in Tableau. So we have done that. One of the nice things that we do is that we're able to export more than just the data from Archer. We can export the permission model and additional data that makes reporting from Tableau fairly easy. And I believe that in 6.4 or maybe 6.5, I'll have to check my records here, but I believe that RSA has developed a user interface for Tableau, so there could be a much easier way to use Tableau than with previous versions.
Okay, thanks, Paul. We are rapidly coming up on our half hour. If there's any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us, info@icebergnetworks.com. I'd like to say thanks to Paul and to Andrew and to everyone who tuned in today to listen to the discussion. Later this afternoon, we will email you the link to the deck and the video on demand. And if you enjoyed today's presentation, please share the link with your colleagues inside or outside of your organization. Paul, any last words before we wrap up here?
Yeah, just one last picture I have here. This is the Iceberg APS team. So these are the people that would provide you the support and help make your Archer program a better and more successful program.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks for our audience, and hope everyone has a great afternoon.
Thank you, Glenn.